Welcome to session 24 of WebSphere Administration. In this session, we are going to cover how we can configure the SSL in the WebSphere. Okay, so one of the previous session, we have covered the SSL configuration in the IHS web server. Okay, but there are a lot of situations where complete end-to-end flow is required to be SSL or encrypted. Okay, so for that, it is very important for you to configure the SSL at the WebSphere level as well. Okay, and for that you need a complete clarity of the complete end-to-end concepts. What are the different kind of key stores in WebSphere, and then what kind of a inbound and outbound channels are there, and what are the different key stores or trust stores are there for the configuration of the different kind of a request that you receive in WebSphere or the request that you initiate from the WebSphere to the third-party systems. Okay, so that are complete details we are going to cover in this session with the practical implementations. Now, there are certain prerequisites when we go for the SSL configuration. Multiple things we have discussed in the IHS session. Okay, about the different kind of certificates like self-sign certificate and then CA certificate. What is the difference between them? What are the pros and cons of using different kind of certificates? What are the key stores? Okay, so if you do not have the background of that, and then you may feel the this topic bit complex because you will not able to think about the different kind of a terminologies that is there in the SSL configurations. Okay, so for that, I would request you first to get some basic understanding of the SSLs and key stores and keys and then certificates. Okay, and I will help you on that. I will share some multiple links which we of the sessions which we have posted on our YouTube channel. Along with that, we have a dedicated course as well on the Udemy. Okay, if you would like to go with that one, then to get the complete end-to-end understanding, then you can subscribe for that session as well. Okay, now the prerequisite for SSL configurations is first is the basic understanding of SSL. What exactly is SSL? Why we configure it? Then we have a different kind of a key stores, and then the main key stores are identity and trust stores. Then we have a public and private keys. Then we have a different kind of a certificates. This we have covered in the IHS session as well. We have two main kind of a certificates like the self-sign certificate and the third-party certificates. Okay, when we configure the application based on our requirements. Now these are the link of our free sessions. Okay, if you would like to get the complete end-to-end knowledge of for the SSL, then you can download this link from the resource section and you can go through that one to get the understanding of SSL. Okay, and if you do not have time, or maybe you don't want to go with that one and you want some basic understandings of that one. Okay, so let me give you that basic understanding as well. What exactly is SSL? Okay, and why we configure it. Although the action plan we have given in this session and the explanation that we have given in this session along with the screenshot and executions, we can easily configure the SSL in the WebSphere without even have a understanding of the SSL. Okay, but that is something which is not expected. Okay, if you are doing something, then you should have a knowledge of that what we are doing. Okay, so that you should have a good command over that one. You should face the proper technical discussions in any of the interviews or any in your call in the internal organization. So for that, it is very important for you to understand the complete end-to-end basics of your SSL. Okay, so for that, I would recommend to go through the free sessions, or maybe as I said, you can go to the one of our session on Udemy, which is specifically on the SSL administration. That link you can get from the resource section once you will download the that file. Okay, in the course. So now let me give you a small understanding of what exactly is the SSL. So for example, this is your WebSphere. Okay, and a client is trying to access some of the application which you have deployed in your WebSphere, right? So this could be your application or this could be your admin console that we access internally, right? For the end-to-end management of the resources in the WebSphere. Okay, so let us consider a client which is sitting at some end and trying to access the application which is deployed in your WebSphere. So the connection between your client browser and the WebSphere, it can be a public network or a private network. Public, maybe you have a web application which is deployed in your WebSphere, for example, an e-commerce website, and then you have a multiple clients. Those are accessing your application over the network. Okay, so that could be a public network because the clients are using their own private public networks. Okay, and then they are trying to access your application which is deployed in your data center. So the traffic could be from the public network. Along with that, you can have a private network as well. Okay, for example, as I said, you may want to configure the SSL for your admin console, right? So admin console we do not allow to access from the outside, from the public network. So for that, you will always have to go from the private network. right? But the configuration you have to follow, because if you are going to configure the SSL, so irrespective of whether you are going to access the application from the public network or maybe you are accessing the admin console from the private network, you have to configure the SSL, right? For that one, that I will explain you in detail. Right. So simple, you have a application deployed on WebSphere, then your client is going to access the application either from the public network or private network. So private network is a bit secure because this is completely internal. But specifically, if your applications are getting access from the public network, okay, then you need some mechanism to encrypting the data which is getting transferred from the client browser to the WebSphere where your application is deployed, right? For example, if you access any of the banking website, we enter our username and passwords, OTP, and then during the session we do a lot of different kind of transactions, and we transfer a lot of secure data, right? So that data is getting transferred over the public network, and someone can take the benefit of that, and then the data can be compromised in between when it's traveling over the public network. So for that we use SSL, and which is specifically for the data encryption. That means whenever the client is sending any data to your server, or maybe when server is sending any data to your client, that data will be encrypted when it is traveling over the network. So this encryption of the data we do with the help of SSLs. Now for doing these kind of encryptions, we have a multiple kind of a terminology in place. Okay. For example, keys used for encryption and decryption. So I'm sure you heard about the keys, the public and private keys. Okay. So these keys we use for these kind of a encryption and decryption. Okay. We have multiple kind of a keys there. Okay. You don't need to go in detail with that specifically when you're going for SSL configuration WebSphere. So this is, I'm giving you just an overview so that you can get the understanding of that. Okay, so mainly you have heard about the public and private keys. Okay, so these kind of a keys we use for the encryption and decryption. So encryption is when your data is getting transferred over the network. Okay, and when it is reaching to a destination, that data again need to be decrypted. Right. So these kind of encryption and decryption we use with the help of keys, and you must heard about private and public keys. Now, along with the keys, there are two important terms in SSL, which is called the identity and trust. Okay, so identity is your own identity. For example, if I'm saying that you have an organization like Digitalk, you are the owner of a Digitalk, right? So you have a certain identity. You have some registration number. You have some other personal details of your organization. Okay, that is called your identity. And trust in the sense when someone is going to access your website from the network or from the internet, okay, that client has to get a certain kind of a trust. Okay, yes, I am connected with a proper certified organization. Okay, so for that we do the different kind of SSL configurations, and for that we have a different kind of a certificates. Okay, and we configure the SSL certificate either with the help of self sign or the CA certificate. I will explain you, okay, in bit detail as well. Okay, so when we configure an website, okay, with the help of SSL, so we have two kind of stores. One is called identity and second is trust. What exactly is contained? You just understand that identity store will contain your identity along with your personal SSL certificate, and trust store will also contain certain kind of a certificate that is to create the trust. Right. Now, when we talk about the certificates, we have a two different kind of a category of the certificate. One is the self-sign and second is the CA certificate. So these two we have covered in detail in the IHS session as well. So self-sign is nothing but it is we use in testing and development because we sign it by ourselves. The name is saying that self-sign. That means you are doing you are creating a certain kind of a certificate for the SSL, and you are doing the signing of that one. You are self-certifying that okay, I am the Digitalk. So what will happen in that case if you are using a self-sign certificate and if you are going to access the application with the self-sign certificate, then you will always get a security prompt because it is not certified by any of the third-party certificate authority. Right. Similarly, if you go for the third-party certificate authority certificates, CA certificates, okay, that means it is certified by some certified government authority. Okay, that means they have identified, verified your organization. After that, they have released the digital certificate for you, which you are going to configure with the help of SSL in your WebSphere. Okay, so in that case, you will not get any security prompt because your browser will trust that particular certificate, which is issued by some certified authority and which you have configured in your WebSphere. Right. So these are the some basic concepts of your SSL. So by default, when we configure, create the profile, okay, and in the in the WebSphere, okay, by default, it is configured with the demo certificate. And when you access any of the URL, for example, admin URL, then you can go to the browser and check for the certificate, and you will see the details of the particular default certificate, default SSL certificate, right? So, but for that, you will get a security prompt when you are going to access over the browser. So we need to configure it with the third-party CA certificate if you would like to avoid these kind of a security prompts, so that your customer can also get the trust. Now, this is the agenda how we are going to cover the SSL configurations in WebSphere. So first we are going to cover the SSL configuration core concepts. Okay, so this is very important topic. If you really want to understand the complete end-to-end SSL configuration in your WebSphere, then do not skip any of the second of this particular video, because your SSL configuration is completely based on these core concepts that we are going to discuss here. Okay, because once you have a complete clarity of all these core concepts, then you can easily work on the configuration of SSL in the WebSphere. Right. Then when we will move for the SSL configurations, so we have two options. Either we can go with the default stores. So as I said, when we install or create any profile in WebSphere, it automatically configure a demo certificates. Okay, that means the some stores are already created there, right? So either you can go with that default store. There is no problem in that one, because you are going to replace the default certificate with your own certificates. Okay, so you can easily use the default stores as well. No issues on that. Apart from that, if you would like to create your own custom stores, you don't want to use the default one, then you can create your custom stores as well. Okay, the process of SSL configuration will be same in both case. The only difference is that here you will get one more step to create your custom stores, and here we are going to use the default stores. This is the only difference between them, right? And now, irrespective of whether you are going to use a default store or going to create a custom stores, okay, we have a two kind of a certificate, right? We have a self-signed certificate, we have a certificate authority certificates. So first we will see how we can configure the self-signed certificate, and then we will see how we can configure with the CA certificate. So we are going to cover both options, self-signed certificate and CA certificate. But again, as I'm saying, that it is very important for you to understand the core concepts, so do not skip even a second of this particular session. Okay, so let us understand the core concept of the SSL configuration in the WebSphere. So as I said, we have covered multiple basics in the IHS session. Okay, about the self-signed certificate, CA certificate, what is the difference between them, pros and cons. So let me give a quick recap when we talk about the key stores and trust stores. So as I said, we have a key store and we have a trust store. So what is a key store? Which contain your keys. Its name only says that key store. That means it is a store for your keys, and keys are your always private, right? It is just like a key of your lock that you keep somewhere safely in your home. Similarly, if you have a key store that you need to store, or you need to place this key store in a secure place, and this contain your keys, and along with that it contain your certificate, which is the main SSL certificate when we talk about the CA certificate, and could be self-signed certificate if it is a self-signed certificate. Okay, so this is the key store which contain your keys and your main SSL certificate. Trust store is contain your public certificates, okay, which we get from the CA authorities. And we get two kind of a certificate, root certificate and intermediate certificate of the from the certificate authorities. So these are the two main digital certificate that we receive from the CA certificate authorities, which we import in our trust store. So that means we always have a two kind of a key stores, key store and trust store. And this key store will contain your keys along with your main SSL certificate, and this trust store will contain your root and intermediate certificate. So let me give you some more clarity on this one. So when we talk about the certificate, so as I said, we have a self-signed certificate, okay, and we have a CA certificate. So when we talk about the CA certificates, okay, we always get a three certificate when we get some certificate from the authorities. The first one is called the personal certificate, which is also called the serval certificate and SSL certificate. Okay, at many places you will see that this main certificate is getting referred as personal certificate, or maybe server certificate, or the SSL certificate. This is the first main certificate, which is your identity, container identity. And this main certificate we always configure in your key store. This one, first one, right? And apart from that, as I said, we get two more certificate, which is the intermediate certificate and root certificate. Okay, and these two certificate we always configure or import in the trust store. Okay, so if you do not have a background or knowledge on the SSL or key store, then don't worry, don't confuse on that. Just understand these two things. We have a two kind of a stores, key store and trust store. When we are going to configure the certificate from the CA certificate authorities, we'll get a three certificates. Okay, the first certificate, which is the personal certificate, you just need to import in your key store, and rest of the two certificate, intermediate and root certificate, you have to import in your trust store. That's it. So once your key store and trust stores are ready with the certificate, we can directly configure them in WebSphere, right? And along with that, as I said, second category is the self-signed certificate. So if it is a self-signed certificate, that is you are creating your for own testing and demo purpose. Okay, in that you will have only have a single certificate, which is called the personal certificate. Okay, so these are the two different categories for the certificate, and these are the two main stores that we use for the configuration. Okay, so now we have two kind of a communications in WebSphere. In fact, not in WebSphere, but wherever you go for any of the application server, you will have two kind of a configurations. One is called the inbound, and second is called the outbound. So inbound, that means which is coming to your WebSphere. Outbound, that means which is going out from your WebSphere. Now, what is the use of that one? So inbound is something very easy to understand. You have some applications deployed in your WebSphere, and some client is trying to access that application with the help of browser. That means this client is making inbound connection to your WebSphere, right? Because which is coming from client to your WebSphere. Now there could be a situation where WebSphere is initiating certain kind of a request to the some other third party. For example, maybe your WebSphere is configured with the LDAP for the user names and password for identity. Maybe it is calling some REST API for certain kind of integrations. Your WebSphere may have a integration with some third-party JMS services. So that means the request is getting initiated from your WebSphere and going to some other systems. So in this way, you will have a outbound, right? It's simple. The request which is coming to your browser from to the WebSphere, which is called the inbound, and the request going outside from WebSphere, which is called the outbound. Okay, so why I'm explaining you these two things, because in WebSphere you have a two different kind of a communications, and for these two different kind of a communication, you have a different kind of a configurations for the key stores when we go for the configuration. Okay, that means if a browser is trying to connect your application which is deployed in the WebSphere, then it is going to use the key store which is configured in the inbound configurations. If your WebSphere is going to call some third-party systems, okay, then for these kind of integrations, if you need to configure the SSL, which is part of the outbound communication configurations. Okay, I will show you that one where exactly it is. Now, when we talk about the accessing the applications in the WebSphere with the help of SSL, okay. So for specifically for that, we have a two kind of application. One is our custom application, which we have deployed in the WebSphere. And second, as I said initially, we have an admin console as well, right? So in WebSphere, if you would like to secure the application which is deployed in your WebSphere, or if you would like to secure the admin console only, okay, we have a two different options for that one. Okay, there are two different key stores and two different ways to configure that. Okay, so that means if you are going to secure your WebSphere applications along with your admin console, so for that you have to follow the two configuration, two different key stores for the SSL configuration. One is to secure your admin console, and second to secure your applications, right? So if I am saying we have two different options for the SSL configurations, so that means they are going to utilize the two different stores. So for admin console, you will have a different identity and trust store. Similarly, if you're going for the configuration of the applications, then for applications, you will have a different identity and trust store, right? And now if you would like to configure the SSL or admin console, then you are going to configure the certificate in your admin identity and trust store. And if you are going to secure the applications, then you have to configure the certificates in your identity interest, which is specifically there for the application service. So these are the two different categories for the configurations of the inbound connections in your WebSphere. Okay. So now let us take a deep look on the key store. What are the different type of key stores available, or the trust stores available in the WebSphere? Let me go back and let me tell you what exactly I am going to explain. So here, as I said, For admin console, we'll have a different identity in trust store, and for application server, we will have a different identity in trust store for the SSL configuration. Okay, so we are going to talk about these two different kind of a identity in trust store, which is there for the admin console and for the applications, right? So first, key store, which is specifically where we configure our self-signed certificate or maybe the personal certificate, which is the main certificate. Okay. And second, trust store, where we configure the intermediate and root certificate, right? So to configure your WebSphere, or specifically we can say for the application. So if you have some application which is deployed in WebSphere, and for your applications you would like to configure the SSL. So for that you have to go with this particular key store, node default key store. So this store we use for the configuration of the applications. That means the SSL configurations of the applications that we have deployed in the WebSphere. Okay, so this is the default key store, right? And what I learned, along with the key store, we will have a trust store. There's always a combination of an identity and the trust store. So this is the main identity store or main key store which we use for the configuration of the SSL configuration of the application which we deployed in the WebSphere. So this belongs to the node, right? Because we are going to configure our application which we deployed in a particular node. So this default key store scope is node level, and we use it to when client try to access the application which is deployed in your WebSphere. For that we use this kind of this node default key store. Okay, and this contain your private keys and main personal certificate. So as I said, in this key store, identity store, we store the personal certificate along with the keys, right? So here we have the private keys and the certificate. If you are configuring a self-sign or CA certificate to enable HTTPS for application, this is where you do it. So that means when you are going for the configuration of the HTTPS or for your deployed application, and whether you have a self-sign certificate or whether you have a CA certificate, personal certificate, we always do it at the node default key store. Along with that, if you do not have a DMGR, okay, you have a standalone application server, and for standalone applications, we will also have a console. For that, you can also configure it at the node default key store, right? And similarly, if we say that we are going to configure our admin console, okay, or the DMGR console, okay, for that we have a different key store, or you can say different identity store, which is called the cell default key store. These are the two very important topics to understand the SSL configuration in WebSphere. If you are going to configure the SSL for your application, which is deployed in WebSphere, or maybe you have a standalone WebSphere where you do not have a DMGR, then to access that particular console or to access the application, you have to configure the SSL at the node default key store. If you are going to secure your admin console access with the help of SSL certificate, for that we have to configure the certificate in the cell default key store. So these are the two default main key stores in your WebSphere. So that means it belongs to the cell, entire WebSphere environment. If you want to secure the access to your admin console or the DMGR admin console, we use the cell default and use when WebSphere connect to external systems securely. And along with that, what we have learned some time back in the previous slide, for the outbound connections, if your WebSphere is going to connect the outside the world, any of the REST API, your any of the identity server or any of the GMS or third-party system integrations, for that also we do the SSL configuration at the cell default key store. So now in a nutshell, what we have learned, if you want to configure the SSL for the application which you have deployed, or maybe if you have a standalone admin console, not DMGR, then we configure it at the node default key store level. If you would like to configure the access SSL for your admin console, along with that, if your WebSphere is initiating the connection to the outer world, for that we configure the SSL at the cell default key store level. So these are the two important key stores where I have seen many engineers are confused why we are doing the configuration of certificate at node default key store, why we are doing for the at the cell default key store, what is the difference between. So I have explained completely what exactly is the difference here, right? So now, as I said, for each and every key store, there is a corresponding trust store. So for this node default key store, you will have a corresponding trust store, which is with the name of node default trust store. Okay, which contain your intermediate or root certificate, you can say, when we are going for the third-party certificate. Okay, and similarly, for the self-default key store, we have a corresponding self-default key store. Okay, so it's very clear now. We have a two kind of stores. One is the identity or the main key store, and then corresponding trust store. The default one is node default key store, and the corresponding trust store is node default trust store. And there is a self default key store, and the corresponding trust store is self default trust store. So these four stores you should get complete end-to-end understanding. Once you have a complete understanding and difference between all these four key stores or the four stores, then it's very easy for you to understand the end-to-end configuration of the SSL in the WebSphere, and I have explained you all in very detail, right? If you want, you can watch this particular session multiple times to get the complete understanding, and then you can move forward, right? Now, once you have configured your stores here, okay, so now we need to reflect that particular settings, right? We have got the certificate, we have configured our key stores, both key stores. Now to reflect that setting in the WebSphere, we have a SSL settings. Okay, so that means the SSL setting is with the name of node default SSL setting, and this particular setting is specifically for this particular node default key store. Okay, so similarly, just like we have this node default SSL setting, similarly we will have a cell level as well, right? So this is our SSL setting, that is at the cell level, cell default SSL setting. So this SSL setting we have to attach our stores that we are going to configure. It's very simple. So that means once our stores are configured, we need to attach that with the SSL settings, or for that we have these two different kind of settings that is available in WebSphere, where we simply attach our certificates. Now conclusion, what we have learned, for securing the applications which you have deployed in WebSphere or maybe the standalone console where you do not have a DMGR, we have a two stores. The first is the node default key store. Second is the node default trust store. So these are the two different main stores. Along with that, we have the SSL settings with the name of node default SSL settings. Okay, to enable our configurations. Similarly, if you would like to secure your DMGR admin console, or maybe you would like to secure the outbound connections from the WebSphere, for that we do the configurations at the cell default key store and cell default trust store level. And to reflect these settings, we have a cell default SSL settings, okay, which we enable with the help of these key stores. So these concepts are the core concept in the WebSphere to understand complete end-to-end SSL configurations. Revise this video, try to understand multiple times if you are still confused. Okay. And once your confusion is clear, once your doubt is clear, then move forward. If you still have any confusion, any kind of a doubt, any kind of a query, you can reach to us. You can write to us at digitalk.fmw@gmail.com. I am repeating that ID, digitalk.fmw@gmail.com. Write to us with your queries. We will try to clarify that as well. Okay, but make sure to get all the complete understanding of these concepts, and then we will recommend you to go with the configurations. Right. So these are the default key stores. If you would like to create your own key store, then you can create your own custom stores as well. Okay, that will explain you. Now, where exactly is the option for the configuration of SSL in the admin console is very straightforward. When you log into your admin console, okay, you can go to the security options. Inside security, you will have an option called SSL certificate and key management. So this is the master area from where we do all kind of SSL configurations in your WebSphere, which is your go to admin console, then go to security, and then SSL certificate and key management. So here you can see once you will go to the SSL certificate and key management, okay, and you will have an option called key store and certificate. You will see multiple options there. Click on key stores and certificates, this one. And here you will see these four default key stores or stores what we have discussed so far. Node default key store and node corresponding node default trust store, cell default key store and a corresponding cell default trust store. So these two for the securing your DMGR console or to secure your outbound connection from the WebSphere, and these two to secure the access of your application where most of the time you work, right? And along with that, if you don't want to use these default key stores, you want to create your own, then you have a new option as well. Okay, from here you can create your new key store. And once your new key store is created, rest of the process will be same. The only difference is that instead of using the default key store, you can use your own custom key stores. Rest of the process will be same, right? And this is the default location of or name of your stores. So if you say about cell default key store, this is the name of your cell default key store, and this is the location. This is the name of your cell default trust store. This is the name of your node level key store and node level trust store in the file system where you create your profiles, right? And here it is showing the scope. What is the scope of this one? So when we are in the node default key store, scope is the node host level, and when we in the cell, it is scope is the cell level, right? So this is the default store, and this is the option to create a new stores. So now, as I said, we have a two different kind of a configurations for inbound and outbound. If we are creating a connection to our WebSphere or the application which we deployed in the WebSphere, for that you will have this inbound configurations, which you can see the inside this particular option, manage endpoint security configurations. Okay, so if you click here, you will see for the inbound, these are the default stores are configured. And similarly, for the outbound, these are the default stores targeted, right? So why I'm showing you, if you want to create your own custom key stores, don't want to go with the custom with the default key stores. So when you create your own custom key stores, you always make sure to change the stores at the inbound and outbound level, right? Because as I said, by default for inbound and outbound, it use the default key stores. Most of the time, you may not require to create your custom key stores. Okay, most of the time we go with the default key stores only, but sometime if you really need some custom key stores, after doing the configuration at the custom key stores, make sure to change it here as well for the inbound and outbound. Otherwise, what will happen? You will configure the SSL, complete SSL for the custom key store, but if you are not going to change at the inbound or outbound level, your application is still going to reference your old default key store and it is not going to work, right? So now we have covered complete end-to-end core concept of the SSLs, and let us now begin with the SSL configuration. And how we are going to cover? We are going to cover in two parts. The first part we are going to cover for the configuration of the self-sign certificate. Second, I will show you how to configure with the CA certificate. And for each part, we will have two parts, subparts. First, if we are going to secure it for the application which we have deployed in the WebSphere. Second, if we are going to secure our admin console or the outgoing traffic. And these two situations are applicable for both. Whether it is a self-run certificate or whether it is a third-party certificate, we do the configuration at two levels for securing the applications, for securing the admin console and outbound connections, right? So all these four options along with the self-sign and third-party CA certificate, we are going to cover next.